Welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show with your hosts, Andee Hastings and Mally Shadmehry. Dive into the heart of family law as Andee and Mally bring clarity to legal challenges, celebrate client victories, and share the wisdom of their combined expertise. Get ready for a journey into empowerment and advocacy right here where your story matters.
Hello and welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show, where we delve into the heart of family law and the stories that shape our lives. I'm Mally Shadmehry, and joining me is Andee Hastings. How are you, Andee?
I am great today, Mally. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm tired. I'm, ready to get through this week. I feel like adulting is just total bullshit sometimes. That's what I feel like.
I think everybody can relate to that feeling at some time or another, for sure.
I just stuff, like all the stuff. I got to deal with stuff with my bank account, my taxes, my retirement, my Amazon account. I can't get it all together. I just want to be left alone. And to be a lawyer, why is it that hard? I hurt my foot in the gym because I wore these Nike shoes that were too narrow, and now my toes hurt, and I can't wear high heels this week. So I'm not happy about it. You know I love my heels.
Oh, I know.
What is your philosophy on high heels in court?
Oh, always wear high heels in court.
For sure.
I mean, is there any other philosophy?
I have a lot of philosophies on what women need to wear in the courtroom.
Well, I'll tell you, as you get older, it becomes harder to wear high heels for 8 or 9 hours at a time because I'm an old lady.
She's not.
But I still wear heels. It
is a sport to pull exhibits that weigh 200 pounds, probably, right?
Oh,
crazy on cars.
Yes.
In your suit, oftentimes a skirt suit with high heels, stiletto heels on, wobbling in there, and you have your trial nerves, you got your client you're trying to soothe, and you got all your bags, and you're like, okay, come on. Lately, I've been taking a cooler to court with me too, so I can get all my protein in during the trial. Just eating cold salmon in the courtroom. Ugh. Yeah, on the heel front, okay, I am a strict 4 to 6 inch heeler. I think 6-inch heels in court, you're going to have a tough day. If you got a short hearing, go 6-inch. If you got an all-dayer, you're going 4-inch, and make sure it's wide and your foot can breathe.
I think that Stephanie refers to 6-inch heels as 30-minute heels.
Love that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Stripper heel, too.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's not.
Support everybody following their passions.
Mm-hmm. We have Stormy Louise in here. That's my pit bull. We really want her to make an appearance, but she hasn't. So tell us, Andee, the question everyone wants to know, are you feeling like a warrior or a diplomat today?
Oh, warrior, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely been one of those weeks. I feel like that's usually my answer. I mean, we're diplomats every day and trying to help our clients, but right now, people are just off the chain. I don't know if it's because we have the solstice coming up. I don't know when the next full moon is.
Right.
But people are acting the fool. And I think that puts us in warrior mode constantly.
Yeah. I feel the exact same. I'm a warrior pretty much as always.
Of course.
Gearing up for a trial next week. We're very prepared. All of our exhibits are ready. Client is prepared. She feels confident. The trial's in a week. So that's always a great feeling to know, okay, strategy's done. It's all in my head. Outlines are created. Exhibits are ready. Client is ready. Now we just have a week of fine tuning if we need it. So definitely warrior mode, ready to go get a job done. And if the other side's smart, they'd settle. But
well, and to that point, don't you love when, because we're preparers, always be prepared, Girl Scout motto.
Oh, yeah.
And so we like to prepare in advance, no self-created emergencies. And when you've already prepared everything and then you're opposing a lawyer who does everything at the last minute, and that happens. Some people work best that way. So, no judgment. However, if you're waiting till the last minute and you're dealing with a lawyer who's already prepared everything, you don't have any leverage. We have the leverage. We're ready. We can go today. We can go tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. That happened to me last week. And on the phone this week with another attorney, I'm like, they think they're going to get me with this fact that they just happened to dig out of the evidence they just looked at. And I'm like, oh.
You've already constructed an entire cross-examination where you've analyzed that fact, you've analyzed the evidence that responds to that fact, and then you've got 3 more pieces of evidence that slam that fact into the ground.
And if we're doing it in a phone call trial, I'm only going to tell you just enough for you to be scared, and you're not even going to know there's so much more.
There's so much more.
So that's always fun. Yeah, this whole notion of being proactive and not reactive. I think in family law, you're going to be reactive to the everyday things that happen in our cases. And there are just some situations you cannot predict. And the law, and when family law is litigious, you're in court a good bit. If not, you just need to move your cases quickly. And, you have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to take on a challenge and kind of thrive in that environment. But I think that, like you said, the more you can prepare and keep all of your cases prepared in advance, it's going to help all your future cases that come on board, because you're going to get a new case that's an emergency. And if everything else already wasn't in order, then the new case is going to suffer. The old cases are going to suffer. You're never going to get caught up. I feel that is something you and I have worked on for years together until we finally got to this place where we're preparing like we are. It's a work of art. It really is.
It is. I think it is. And it contributes to all the things that are important to us, which I know we'll talk about at some point. Work-life balance and everybody having a quality of life, and also the quality of, support and legal expertise that we provide to our clients. They benefit from us being prepared because it builds their confidence. It reduces their anxiety. And it also generally produces better results.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Well, there we go. So let's dive into our topic for the day. One of my favorite topics, actually. The topic is Andee Hastings. I did my solo segment solo show where I just talked about how I got into family law, a little bit about my spirit, and who I am as an advocate. So I want our audience to get to hear the same about you, because I've had the immense pleasure of getting to have you in my life. I did not know that when I walked into what was Wagner Hastings Shadmehry used to be Wagner Hastings. And I didn't know when we had dinner for the first night, which was our interview. And
at a bar,
and we ate sushi, and I want sushi as we speak. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm ready for sushi. Of course. So we get dinner, and I remember my dad was on the phone with me before I was driving over there. I had just left my previous firm the day before. Had a lot of clients that were going to be leaving with me, and I'm like, okay, gotta figure this out. And my dad's like, don't accept the first offer you get, Mally. What are you doing? Well, I go to that dinner, and y'all gave me an offer, and I'm like, accepted. Sorry, Dad. And my dad usually is right, but not on this one, Dad. I love you. I'm sorry. Because it was the best decision of my life. And I joined as an associate and got to work with you. And that is when I learned even more the importance of who you surround yourself with. And you brought so much knowledge to the table, and we both grew together and learned how we could balance each other. And we started as associate and partner and slowly grew to partners. And we've worked hard on our relationship. Every day we do. And we live a very intense, hard life. But it's a marriage. It's a marriage. We're married.
We've said that, but we're married.
And it's important to put work into that relationship, but that's another topic.
Another one.
But I'm proud to say that you're my business partner, and you're my best friend, and you're my family. So I want the audience to get to hear about the Andee that I know. So let's go for it. Tell us about baby Andee. How did you know you were going to be a lawyer? Tell us the beginning.
So I had ideas about becoming a lawyer before I was a teenager, but I also had ideas about being a veterinarian or a school teacher or in the Navy, because my mom was a school teacher and my dad was a military officer in the Navy. And I thought they were really cool, and so I wanted to do what they wanted to do. And I also love animals. That's a totally different issue. But I thought about being a lawyer, and I remember a conversation with my dad. This was, regretfully, it was in the 80s. It's a long time ago. And I was talking about something having to do with politics and the law and this and that because, I was that kid. And I was like, I don't know how these people do this. I was 11, okay? And I was like, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how lawyers do it and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even know what I was talking about, okay? And I want to say I was in the 5th grade. But anyway, my dad said something to me that has stuck with me ever since, which is, well, if you're not willing to do something about it, then don't complain about it. And that just stuck in my head. And I was 11. So my complaints were like, about nerds candy and stuff like that. Like we didn't even have, we had rotary dial phones. So it was a different world. But that has always stuck with me, that he said that, and he's right. And I still waffled back and forth. I thought about being a veterinarian. I had some really amazing teachers when I was in high school that saw something in me that I didn't. And I always grew up ridiculously shy, which you think, oh, well, how on earth did you end up becoming a lawyer if you're a trial lawyer, no less? My parents used to say, you will not go ask somebody for the time on the beach. And we grew up in Virginia Beach, so that's like actually a thing. And I wouldn't. I was just so painfully shy. And
I never knew that.
That's
so cute.
It was
baby Andee.
So shy.
I totally would have been your friend, and I would have been like, okay, I'll go ask the time.
I would have loved you so much as baby Andee friend Mally.
Okay, so you're shy, you're in your shell.
Yes.
We're like 5th grade, but your little brain is starting to say, something's brewing here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so I get to high school, and we moved around a little bit because my dad was in the military. So we came to Georgia before my junior year of high school, and I was in an AP history class with a teacher named Linda Morrison, who I credit for changing my entire educational trajectory.
Shout out Linda.
Shout out to Linda. We're Facebook friends. She's absolutely amazing. She's touched a lot of people's lives in ways that are really special, and she did that for me.
Cool.
I was in her AP US history class. She got me into extemporaneous speaking, and oral argument competitions, and that was hard because I was so shy, but it made a difference. And I remember after I started going to those, it started building my confidence, and I was like, oh gosh, I can come up with things on the fly, and I just never would have thought that I had that in me. So I went to college. And I majored in international studies and Russian. I was sure that I was going to end up in Washington, D.C., doing something, maybe not the law. And I remember having a Russian history professor that was like, why on earth do you want to go to law school? You need to get your PhD. And in my mind, I respect everybody that does that. But I was like, that sounds so
yeah.
Anyway, so
way too scholarly for me.
It's just different. But you would have thought that I would have been like, oh yeah, absolutely, because I'm so shy. Anyway, so I end up in law school at Georgia, and I somehow managed to take over the entire mock trial program. I create competition.
Somehow she's just destined to run stuff.
Well, and I was just drawn to it. And I did take over the program. And
how did that even happen? You were just like, we need to fix these things. And you started doing things. And then all of a sudden everyone was looking to you.
Yeah. We had an intra-school competition. And the first year that I was involved, I was like, we need some real heavy hitter judges in this. So I just started calling Supreme Court justices.
Just, hey.
Yeah. So we had 3 Supreme Court justices who became very good friends. One of them gave me my bar results. God bless him. And Court of Appeals, Superior Court judges. We had this incredible panel of lawyers. And it just took that competition and elevated it to something brand new. I created competitions that I could then participate in, which doesn't seem fair, but there was no fix. Sure. Like we had judges that had no idea who was who and all of that sort of thing. But I loved it. That's what I wanted to do. I loved trial practice. I took a internship in the prosecutorial clinic. So I started in my second year of law school, the beginning of my second year, in the Rockdale County District Attorney's Office.
I have a question. Yeah. So, all right. I'll ask you. Okay. So today, do you get nervous when you go to court?
Oh, yes.
All right.
And I'm going to tell you that my mentor, my original mentor in the practice of law, somebody who is so near and dear to me, his name is Cotter Begg. I hope to have him on this show sometime. He taught me when I was in court, in law school, when I was trying cases, you sit on the edge of your chair. You do not lean back. If you're not nervous, you probably are ready to retire. You should always be nervous. You're handling people's lives. And at that point, I was a prosecutor. And so I was handling life and death issues. I still am in family law. It's just a different aspect of it. And he said, if you don't walk into this courtroom nervous, then this is probably not where you belong.
I love that. And so because as a so similarly, like I always loved public speaking when I was a kid. I wasn't a shy kid. I am a bit more reserved than people might think. Like in my personal life, I just kind of am laser focused on whatever I'm doing in the moment. But I'm not shy, and I loved public speaking. But when it came to lawyering and being in the courtroom, it was such a challenge for me at first to have the confidence to understand that, Mally, you know the evidence in your head. It's actually literally in here like a computer, and you don't have to refer to notes. It's in here. You've studied it so hard. And not only is it in there, but as soon as you stand up in that courtroom, it's going to flow. That's your talent. And because for me, I don't have to try when I stand up in there. It's in here and it flows. Everybody's different. Mm-hmm. But I'm somebody that is such an executor, and you're like this too, that I'm used to, if I want something, make it happen. I'm not used to things being effortless. And so it took me about 4 years of being a trial attorney in the courtroom before I had this notion. I think this is what you're saying. This notion of, okay, I acknowledge that I'm nervous, because also I say the same thing and I say it to my clients. You're not a human being if you're not nervous when you're walking into that courtroom. That is just part of being a human. So I came to this conclusion about 4 years in, like, okay, you've done this a lot of times. You now know what it feels like, what it looks like, tastes like, feels like, and you're going to be nervous. But that feeling of nervousness now is now at my comfort level. It's like, that's what evolution and growth really is.
Exactly.
What used to make me mortified, nervous, can't even speak, I'm so nervous, is now my normal. And now there's a whole nother set of issues in my life and in our business that it feels intimidating, like trial used to, but I already know that you put the work in, and the things that make you so nervous and whatever and feel impossible, those become your normal. You put the work in and you just could keep evolving. And so I always think that's an interesting thing to ask about, how do you handle your nerves? Because for me, it's just this. It's just I say, okay, hi, I acknowledge the nerves. Now let's go to work. Boop. And it's just another day in the office when you stand up and start your trial.
It's true. The minute you stand up and you start arguing pretrial motions, or you start with your opening,
it's comforting.
It's like, we're here. We're
meant to be in your place. It'll gives you chills. We always look at each other when Andee and I try cases together, or we'll be texting, one of us about to start a hearing. And we always say, the worst minutes of your life are the few minutes right before the trial starts. You sit there and I'm like a racehorse in the gates, like about to bust through. Let me bust through. Don't make me wait anymore. So, okay. So at what point in your career do you think you got your swagger and your sea legs in the courtroom where you could kind of swallow those nerves? How long did that take you?
Well, it's funny. And I don't mean to over focus on this, but when I was in law school, I participated in all these mock trial competitions, and we had real lawyers teaching us. I would spend hours every night, 4 or 5 hours practicing for these competitions for weeks. I knew the rules of evidence inside and out. I had all the arguments planned out. I knew what my direct examinations were going to be. I knew my cross. I knew the whole thing. And this was while I was in law school.
So your brain was already forming ways to know, master the situation.
Right. It was like immersion therapy for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like that. I like to get into something and just do it all the time until I've got it down. And so I tried my first jury trial the day before my third year of law school started. It was a DUI.
Which is That is wild to me. Wild. There's lawyers that have, in family law, been practicing 20 years and have never done a jury trial. They're petrified of it. So the fact that you did that your third year of law school put such an edge in what we do. Anyway, sorry. So tell us about this first jury trial.
Oh my gosh.
Were you so nervous?
I was so nervous. Oh my gosh. I was like 22 or something.
And you had your beautiful red hair.
Yes, I had my hair, and that was my best feature. But I went into court and I tried this DUI case. And, you know, sometimes you don't know enough to be scared. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was nervous because it's a jury trial. And I mean, I'm 22 years old. And I get in there and I pick my jury and, you know, I'm going through my case. And this is a DUI refusal case. For those of y'all out there, there were no like blood alcohol tests or blood tests or, you know, any of that, the intoxilizer tests or anything. So he refused to do any tests. So I had to argue, didn't know how much harder this was, that his stumbling and all the things were evidence of him being drunk while driving. And his defense was the untied shoelaces and salt and vinegar potato chips defense. The salt and vinegar potato chips was what made his breath smell like alcohol.
Ew.
And his untied shoelaces are what made him unsteady on his feet.
Lawyer told him to say that.
I don't even remember. That's what's so crazy. I don't even remember who he was represented by.
Not that we would ever say that, but
I
like,
wouldn't.
Hey,
I mean, they're just doing their job.
You just tell the jury that it was salt and vinegar potato chips.
It's a very specific defense.
All right.
Didn't work.
It's awesome.
The jury was out for 12 minutes. And they ended up having to go back out for 5 more. And the reason was because they wrote their verdict in pencil. And it had to be in pen.
Go do it again.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's one of the rules. And so they found him guilty. And what I remember about that, I always like to talk to my juries afterwards. And I went out into the hallway to talk to them. Cotter was there with me, talking to them too, teaching me how to be a lawyer. And they were all putting their arms around me like I was their kid, telling me that I did such a good job. And it was the sweetest thing. I can picture it to this day. I know the suit that I was wearing. I know where we were standing in the courthouse. I mean, like, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was
that
special.
was like a just pivotal moment for you.
It really was.
All right. So after you graduated, did you then go, leading question, into the prosecutor's office?
Yes.
Okay.
So we, the Violence Against Women Act created a bunch of jobs across the country for domestic violence prosecutors. And one was created in the office that I had been interning in while I was in law school. So I was lucky enough to be offered that job while I was still there as an intern before I graduated, and I stayed. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the experience, and I was there for 3 years after that.
And okay, so is this the time in your life where you had your St. Bernard?
Yes. So September of 1999.
Woohoo! We were going into the 2000s.
I mean, Y2K, that was so scary.
I was in 6th grade.
I mean,
playing with Tamagotchis.
We're totally getting that.
I want a Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
I also have a Trapper Keeper. Maybe we'll feature it next time. I love Trapper Keepers, and we love office supplies.
Well, I'm getting a Trapper Keeper too.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll put Tamagotchis in them.
Tamagotchis was a little before my time. We had this entire conversation before we started.
We did.
But we're going to manifest that.
Okay.
St. Bernard. Yes. So I decided I wanted a puppy. I'd never had a puppy as an adult. I had cats because, you know, cats are easy when you're in college and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a puppy. And I was like, what kind of puppy do I want? I don't even know. And so then I just decided I want a St. Bernard because I was like, go big or go home. And
absolutely.
So I went and got myself this St. Bernard puppy who was like this at 8 weeks.
What was her name again?
Maximilian. I called her Maxie. She was perfect. She lived almost 14 years. But man, did she get me through the beginnings of being a prosecutor. And then when I went into private practice. So she was a reflection of my attitude at the time.
It's so meaningful to me. And whenever I picture that part of your life, I picture Max. Mm-hmm. And Because for me too, when I started as a lawyer, I had a 2-year-old boxer at the time, Baxter. And Baxter was my Max. He was my everything.
Yeah.
Also so representative of me. He was so bad. Oh, he was so bad. And I loved every second of it. Like, whatever. And I vivid memories in law school and then beginning as a lawyer and to this day, I still do it, lining up all my trial materials on my kitchen island. My exhibits are all over my house. Everything. It's like a law firm in my house. And I would stand there and I would practice my opening statement, all my examinations to Baxter. I'm like, now,
Same.
Isn't it true that blah, blah, blah? And he's just staring at me like, hey, Mom. And love that for us. Love that for these babies.
It was special.
So talk to us about what happens after you left the prosecutor's office.
Well, one thing happened while I was there, and what you just said made me think of it. And I think Cotter would probably murder me if I didn't talk about it, because he knows I don't like to talk about myself. So I'm trying really hard right now. There's nerves here, okay? But while I was in the DA's office, and I remember this so specifically, I received a ruling from a judge that I didn't think was fair. And in public policy, it's very rare that the district attorney actually appeals rulings. It's usually defendants that, because if a defendant is acquitted, there's nothing to appeal. Mm-hmm. But this was a pretrial ruling. I read the law to mean that you could, if somebody had multiple batteries that involved a family member, that they could then be charged with a felony. And I charged this person with a felony, or I proceeded with a felony, and the judge kicked it out and said that that's not what the law says. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, it should. And so I appealed it to the Court of Appeals and went down there. Cotter prepared me for this. We had all these practice sessions where they were throwing questions at me. Their questions were so much harder
because the
than
Court
getting
of
down there.
Is not like a trial in the trial courts like we do. It's totally different. I had to do exercises on that too.
Yes.
And remember thinking,
Yeah.
This is wild. It's like a pop quiz. That's what it is. An in-person pop quiz with a panel of appellate judges.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, what about this? What about this? What about this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's drilling you. You're ready.
Yeah, so we go down there. I've been practicing law for 1 year. I'm a 1-year lawyer. Again, I think this is a perfect example of one of those things you don't know that this isn't normal. Like, trying your jury trial the day before your first day of third-year law school.
Yeah, as Elwood says, what? Like it's hard? What?
Well, I knew it was hard. I just didn't know it wasn't normal. So went down to the Court of Appeals and argued this case and argued the public policy reasons for why this should be treated this way. And they agreed. And they overturned the judge in the case. And after that, the legislature then changed the law to make it very clear that family violence batteries they have increased penalties if you commit multiple family violence batteries.
So when you do, the Court of Appeals issues their opinion, that makes it new law, right? All right. So basically you made new law. Mm-hmm. And so baby Andee at 11 years old talking to your dad about nerds or whatever, and him saying, don't complain about something if you can't fix it. That came full circle pretty quick for you.
It did.
That's so powerful. I never knew that. I never connected all those dots. That's wild. And you didn't stop there, did you?
No.
Okay. So, all right. So after your time at the DA's office, you went into civil litigation.
I did.
Okay.
I spent a year traveling around the country taking depositions 4 and 5 days a week. Again, more of that immersion therapy. And so I learned how to take a deposition with very difficult opposing lawyers. And that was a gift too.
Yeah.
And then for a couple of years, I did regular civil litigation where I wasn't traveling around all the time taking depositions, which was a huge gift. I had an incredible boss and mentor. And then I decided to transition into family law because it seemed like the perfect marriage of my domestic violence prosecutor experience and my civil litigation experience. And so that's when I made the transition into family law, and that was in 2003.
All right. So, okay. So then I was going to say, well, why family law? But sounds like part of it was the marriage between domestic violence background, civil litigation. So logistically and from the business mindset, this was an area that just seemed to be a good fit. Was there anything else?
Well, so I've always been the champion of the underdog. When I was a kid, even though I was shy, I was the one that if somebody was being hurt or picked on or abused, I would do whatever I could to protect that person. That has always been baked into my personality. So for me, and it's why I went into becoming a domestic violence prosecutor. It's just baked into my personality to want to be a protector. And so when I was thinking about, specializing, I was like, well, it's obvious. I'm going into family law because that's the way that I can continue to be the person that I am, I believe innately, which is a protector of people, their children, their lives. So that was the big driving force, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's one thing about Andee is, for example, when I came to her as an associate attorney, I was a different person, a shell of a person, and I was a great lawyer,
Always,
and all of those things. But I needed a safe place with the people I was surrounding myself with, and people that just let me be myself and gave me the time to grow. So Andee stuck by me in my different seasons of growth as a professional, but also as an individual. And throughout each season, provided just the safest spot. It's like a superpower that Andee brings to the table, and something that we're going to talk about later in some other episode too, because it pertains to how we run our firm and our people and our perspective on business and how we can impact society and all of that. But I've known that about you too, that yes, protect the underdog and always do what's right even when the doors are closed, having integrity, even behind closed doors. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, all right, so you knew you wanted to be a protector.
Yes.
And you started practicing family law at a firm in Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay.
Incredible opportunity. An attorney, her name's Nancy Lawler, gave me my first opening into family law. She had a very high-end practice, and by high-end, I just mean high asset, complex litigation cases. So again, with the immersion therapy in my practice, I was thrown straight into the deep end of, I think the first case that I was on, I remember right as I started was this $20 million case. And that's a lot. And that's hard. A lot when I was, young and hadn't done any of that before. It was really good. And Nancy and Andee Packman, her partner, were just incredible. And I had the most amazing opportunity. So it was those kinds of cases, kind of well-known people, and that brings its own element of challenge, in addition to complicated assets. So I was kind of gifted with that opportunity. And again, I didn't know that wasn't necessarily normal.
Right.
Because I just went straight into it. But, and then I was in a mediation with lawyers from two other considered family law giant law firms. And I came out of the mediation, and the mediator and my opposing lawyer were both saying, I want you to come to my firm. I want you to come to my firm.
That's crazy. I never knew this. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was really special. I have the vivid picture in my mind of sitting in that mediator's office, and us, the lawyers, sitting on the opposite side, and we're having this conversation. So then that's when I went, and I ended up at a law firm called Warner Mayu, Bates and Nolan. And absolutely exceptional lawyers, unbelievable experience. I would describe them as the absolute cream of the crop, as far as legal minds, experience. They're just ingenious. They come up with creative ways, legal ways, but creative. They're thinking outside the box to solve problems, and I was there for several years, actually became a partner with John Mayhew while I was there. John Mayhew is probably he is the best family law attorney I think I've ever known. So gifted. And
why?
Well, he was brilliant for one thing. He was one of those people, he'd walk into a courtroom and everyone became quiet because they wanted to hear every word that came out of his mouth. He was just so good. He was so elegant. A closed door was meant to be kicked open, but elegantly. Like if there was a problem that seemed like a roadblock in a case, he would put us on it. He'd be like, find me the answer I want. And we did. And I liked that because, I'm the one that ended up in the Court of Appeals when I was a year out because I didn't get the answer I wanted. So that resonated with me.
Yeah, there's always a way.
There is.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of being artful with the law and persuasive and building up a level of credibility where people will listen to you and they will genuinely consider what you're proposing. And
that takes years to build.
It does.
That reputation. It's the whole thing. And, we talk about him and he's now passed. We talk about him in our practice probably weekly, and we have since I've worked with you. So I know that him and Cotter, had...
What would Cotter do? What would John do?
Yeah.
Those are our conversations.
So it's so cool because everything he taught you has trickled down, and we've implemented a lot of the things that he taught you to how we run our cases, run our firm. And, of course, I bring my mentors from my past. And, anywho, I think that that's really cool. Okay, so you're working with John, and you become a partner. And did you find that you liked family law right away? What was your feeling?
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it from the minute I started it. And, people say you either love it or you hate it.
Yes.
But I loved it. It was in my blood, and
same.
It resonated. The ways that I thought that I would love it bore out. That was absolutely true. He's also the one that taught me the practice that we have implemented, which is being extremely prepared.
Sure.
His method became my method, which has ultimately become our method.
That's right.
And I'm grateful for that. That's a gift that I can't say how grateful I am for it, because I think it makes us better lawyers and leaders, and I'm just lucky. I've been very lucky.
All right. And so tell us about starting your own firm.
So I had done a collaborative law training with Amy Wagner, was one of the instructors, and she reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in kind of going out on my own. And I was nervous at first. I was kind of risk averse. I wasn't sure, I hadn't processed it fully, and I like to turn the prism and think of every possible eventuality. And I finally just decided to take the leap. Collaborative law was a piece of what Amy did, and I was really interested in it, but it's not something that John did in his practice. And so I decided to take the leap. And I will tell you that John was so ridiculously supportive. There were cases that I had been on with him that he continued to have the clients hire me to continue to work with them. He supported it. If he could find collaborative cases, he sent them to me. And I had this opportunity. Again, so lucky. And I joined Amy Wagner, who is excellent. And she had an existing firm, Ossenberg Wagner. Her previous law partner had passed away. So we lived together for 6 months before we got married. And so, I was of counsel for about 6 months. And then we joined forces and became Wagner Hastings. So, and I credit Amy for a lot of the things that I have been able to learn as a leader and a boss in a law firm.
Me too. And when I joined Wagner Hastings as an associate, I got to work with Amy, loved her, and she, we'll always love her. We grew in different directions, eventually, and became Hastings Shadmehry.
Yep. For which I'm also eternally grateful.
Same. And that's a different story.
It is
a different day.
Story.
What is your favorite part about owning a law firm?
I honestly, I like to take care of people. And some people see this as a negative and some people see it as a positive. But I like to take care of my clients. I like to have the ability to decide how that looks, how I'm going to do that. But I also love having this work family. And I know it sounds maybe kind of silly and a little emotional, but I care about these people that come into our office and put their blood, sweat, and tears into these clients and our cases. And it's special to me. And before I was an owner of a law firm, it was different. It just was different. So I'm grateful for the ability to do the things that I want to do as a lawyer, but also just grateful for the people that I'm surrounded with every day.
Same. Something about being able to cultivate a culture.
Right.
And within these walls, and then with the work that we do, impact society and cultivate kind of the same vibe that we've built in here for our clients and their lives moving out. So I agree. I get that. All right. And so what about, what is your favorite part about just being a lawyer in general? Could be anything.
Oh, I love to go to court. I love to be in court, be super prepared, and just kill it. There have been times when we've been in court and I'm like, I would do this for free. I mean, I can't. I'm not independently wealthy, but like it's so exciting when you go in and you fight for somebody and you persuade a judge, maybe sometimes with an argument that other people would have said would not be successful, and you get that result for somebody and it changes their lives. Yeah. There's nothing like it in my view.
I guess my answer would have to be the same.
I know it is.
Trial. It is an honor to get to do that and serve people in that way. We are public servants, and it is an absolute honor, and then it is a thrill as well. It becomes your whole being if you are passionate about what you do. It is all consuming. The people around you, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, friends, family, the people in your office, everybody has to be ready to support you. Basically, you are one track mind, and you should be able to balance things. But it's just, if you have something really intense in the courtroom that's about to go down, you go into battle mode. You're stepping onto the battlefield. And at that point, who you surround yourself with matters the most.
The most.
Which is why it's so beautiful, to have you and go to battle every day with somebody that I know is in it just as much as I am, and for the right reasons. But yes, I think that trial is my fave too, particularly cross-examination and closing. So fun. So fun.
See, I love opening. And John taught me that.
Yep.
He said, and I don't know the statistics on this, to be honest with you, but he was like, people make up their minds in opening. They're not supposed to. But they do. And so he had this entire way of doing an opening statement, and you can see the minds of people listening working. But closing, come on. So fun.
I know. So fun. Whew. Well, thank you so much for sharing about yourself with us. Please be sure to follow us on our Facebook, our Instagram at Hastings Shadmehry. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
See you soon.